Benfica Podcast is one of the founding members of Benfica Independent. Benfica Independent is an independent platform made by fans for fans. And in it, you can find our podcast, along with many other podcasts, along with articles of opinion, video segments, and much, much more. We're also on patreon.com/Benfica Independent with exclusive contents for our patrons.
Hasta que no estás aquí dentro no sabes la grandeza de este equipo. Sí, es un club que tiene una grandeza que no se comprende si no estás aquí dentro.
São de uma magia única, benfiquista, que só nós sentimos assim. Por muitos desgostos que possamos ter, valores mais altos se levantam. E o valor mais alto que se levanta em termos futebolísticos chama-se Benfica.
Quero o Benfica intimidar o adversário. Quero o manto sagrado entrar com vocês em qualquer estado e assustá-los, pá! É isso que eu quero!
Hello, everybody. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Dog Benfica podcast. My name is Alfredo Fumaças, episode number 473, and with me, as always, Cristiano Oliveira. Como é que é, amigo? Tudo bem?
Não, pá, tô fudido.
You care to elaborate?
I have every possible microphone in my studio off, laptop mic off, camera mic off. I have everything silenced or turned off, and yet somehow you guys are still able to hear me. This is scary, dude. I'm scared.
For as much as you're trying not to speak on the podcast, it's you're just a force of nature. That's what it is.
Government planted a bug in my studio, connected directly to the Benfica podcast studio. Alfredo, you are the mole. I don't understand how in the world I have everything off, and yeah, you guys are still able to hear me.
No, I don't think it was Alfredo. I think it was your boy there, Baqueiro, when he came from Portugal. He planted the audio device.
Chris, do me a favor, Chris. Do me a favor. Go outside right now, look above your house, and see if there's a balloon. Because that could be a sign of something.
Dude, I'm flabbergasted. I you know me. It's very rare occasions.
Don't try to understand it. We all know you're technically challenged.
No, Alfredo, you know that there's one thing I'm actually decent at is at the button pushing stuff. You know that.
Nobody's gonna dispute that.
In terms of connection, you know I'm pretty good at that stuff. But for this,
yeah. You're good at pushing buttons. That's for sure. Also with us tonight, Dave de Oliveira. What's happening, Dave?
What's going on, guys? Good to be back on. I don't think that we have. Well, from what I've heard, the balloon started and came across Canada, and we didn't shoot it down. But
did you guys even know that it was coming across Canada, or just? It was just...
I guess it made its way from Alaska, and it had to pass through us somehow, and we didn't bother shooting it down, and got across the border there.
Do you guys think it was just one of Tom Ford's hijinks? Balloon up in the sky? Maybe he's delivering some crack.
He let the guy rest in peace. He's passed away now, But yeah, good to be back on here tonight, and like the episode says, we're picking up some steam, getting back into pre-World Cup form. I know some Freddy's already in the chat here with therapy time with us, but I think We really haven't needed therapy. I know last week was definitely a therapy session with the Enzo saga, but
Dave,
everything's been going going well.
what's the opposite of therapy? If
Ooh, a party. You gotta maybe I don't know, party, some
it's what it
joyous
is.
occasion.
It's a
party.
Tuesday night dance party without the dancing part, and here we are. Welcome all the Freddies. Thanks for joining us as always. I'm sorry that I'm pulling you from the State of the Union address that Biden is given right now. I'm sure that we are a lot more interesting than Joe Biden, at least a lot younger. I think all three of our ages combined are probably not as old as Biden.
I'm still trying to figure out how the hell you guys are able to hear me
Chris.
with everything off.
Chris, don't worry about it.
Listen, I've made an executive decision here on the podcast as you and Dave were kicking it back and forth, and making an announcement here.
You're making it. Go ahead, make an announcement.
Making an announcement. See,
What is that? Joao Mario's trophy?
this is gonna be the award we're gonna be giving out every single podcast that we do.
Every single podcast? I didn't know.
I've heard this one before.
No, but just I'm gonna show them, and then they imagine receiving it in the mail.
So what's the criteria? Who wins that? What
I haven't decided
contest.
yet. I haven't decided yet, but just want to let everybody know this is the trophy. When I decide why we're giving it away, all right.
So
I just made the decision that we're giving it away.
But
I don't know.
Are you guaranteeing it that you're giving it away every night?
No,
every
no,
week.
No, because then I wouldn't have one for me. You know what I mean? It's just.
So is it like a symbolic trophy?
Yeah, you win it, and then you kind of like do like this with nothing in your hand. You act like you received it in the mail, and then we'll Photoshop it. Because if I were to send you my one trophy, then I wouldn't have it for me. So, but we're gonna. This is the trophy, so you guys just get the gist of it in your head, right? The idea, the picture. We're gonna be handing out this trophy on the Benfica podcast. We haven't decided for what. What's the criteria? We'll make a decision as we go along. But this is the trophy, guys. We just want you guys to visualize it, because this is gonna be forget the Ballon d'Or. This is gonna be the most sought after trophy. Just want to let everybody know. I made that decision tonight.
All right.
What are we naming it?
I
don't know.
The Cristiano.
See, I wanted
It's a trophy that I'm giving, but I don't know for what.
I like the chicken fingers. If you guys recall, the chicken fingers award, but there's no chicken fingers here.
I like the chicken fingers, man. Maybe you could make some chicken fingers and put them over the boot.
Stuff the boot with chicken fingers, right?
Stuff the boot with chicken fingers. Is that a hole?
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, Diogo Reis says he prefers the chicken nuggets. Yeah, I don't, chicken fingers, chicken nuggets. To me, the biggest thing is what kind of sauce you dipping it in. That's the trick right there. But anyway,
bro, I'm not a sauce guy at all, because once you introduce a sauce to whatever the food might be, right? It's no longer about the food.
Yep.
It's about the sauce.
I'm with Cristiano on that. We might be in the minority, but I agree with you.
Like the people that eat rice.
Don't agree with
I come over my house and I get a frungle with ribs, right? Costellas and some frungle. I hope I'm not getting anybody hungry. But I get some costellas, some frungle, and then they get the rice, and then they stuff the plate with rice, and then they get ketchup. You're not eating rice. You're eating ketchup. It's like...
You're not going... Oh, the people that go over to your house and do that.
Or wherever. I go to dinner. I go to lunch with a lot of my friends, and they do that. And I'm like, bro, why don't you just eat the jar and just leave the rice to the side? It's less fattening. You know what I mean? Like, it's pointless. Once you introduce a sauce, it's no longer about the quality of the product you're putting into your mouth. Because you put sauce on any chicken finger is going to taste great because of the sauce. Yeah. The quality in the food is the chicken finger on its own.
Yeah, Flavio's right. Let's get this Benfica talk started. Episode 473, as you can see on your screens. Tonight, we were going to be...
Go ahead, Alfredo. Go ahead.
Today, we're going to be recapping the Casa Pia game, which happened this past Saturday. We'll look ahead to the Portuguese Cup match against Braga at the Pedreira this upcoming Thursday. I hope everybody's excited about that match. After all, we got a score to settle with Braga from earlier in the season, our only loss in the season. But here we go. Casa Pia. I'll give you the lineup. We'll get started. Flaco Dimos was in goal. Ba, Silva, Otamendi, Grimaldo, Tino, Chiquinho, Joao Mario, Auschnes, Guedes, and Neres was our lineup. And Cristiano, dominating performance by Benfica in the first half, pressing high, recovering balls, really suffocating. I don't know. I don't know if you could say suffocating, but definitely we kept Casa Pia in their own half. They really weren't able to do much because of our press. And look, I was telling Dave before we came on live that it feels that we're slowly getting to that pre-World Cup form. What do you think?
I think potato patata. You know what I mean? What you call dominating, I call monkus. Right? I mean, Benfica did exactly what they did.
Casa Pia aren't necessarily monkus. They're in 4th place.
No, calm. Fourth is almighty sport. Calm.
No,
they moved
5th place, sorry.
Yeah, they're a little below that. But nonetheless, the team that played at the Luz, when was it? What day was it? I don't even forget. Saturday. The team that played at the Luz that was a pathetic football club. I think Benfica was comfortable the whole time.
Underplaying Benfica's efforts?
Come on, bro. I mean, it's Casa Pia. It's Casa Pia. I've only heard of Casa Pia as an orphanage my whole life until now. All of a sudden they got a football team. I never even knew they had a football team. Let's calm down. It's Casa Pia. I mean, Benfica did what they had to do at home. We're talking about a club that's challenging for the title in the Portuguese Campeonato, a club that's through to the knockout stage of the Champions League. They did exactly what they had to do. Everybody is going crazy about this performance, but yet they forget that it was against Casa Pia. Benfica did with that. I didn't think it was a tremendous performance by any stretch of the imagination.
Dave, what did Porto do against Casa Pia and Sporting do against Casa Pia this year, Dave? Can you take a look
if I'm not mistaken, Casa Pia took points away from Porto and Sporting had their way with them. But let me just confirm that here.
Yeah, look, I think Casa.
Yeah, they lost 3-1 to Sporting. They beat Braga 1-0, and then for Porto they drew 0-0, 0-0. So
in the run-up of the game, I did say that Casa Pia away from the Jamor, which is where they play in the national stadium, I'd only lost twice in the first round. So, Chris,
that's what but didn't Benfica play them in Leiria? I'm not questioning what you're saying. I was confused. I thought, wait, did Benfica play them in Leiria, but they played their home games at Estadio Nacional?
Well, now they're playing their home games at Estadio Nacional. They came to an agreement.
Clarify that. All right, good. I'm glad
they came to an agreement. And also, people in the chat are saying that you should move a little bit to your right so you could be more on the center of the picture.
It's all right.
You're halfway off the picture.
Who said that?
I did. Because I did tell you before the show, make sure you get centered. And the guy's like Phantom of the Opera. Half his face is seen, the other half we don't know who he is.
But wait, I moved.
It's this disguise, he's got his microphones turned off. He only wants to see half his face.
I don't know what's going on in the studio.
It's a mess. When I'm not in that studio, it's a mess. It's a mess.
Right, I'm looking up at the TV. And I'm perfectly centered, bro, on the TV. I'm going off of that.
I said look at YouTube.
You said plus Freddy. But listen, all jokes aside now.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
Honestly, I'm being honest. To me, it was a performance that I expected from Benfica. I understand that Casa Pia has done some damage throughout the season in Portuguese football. I get all that.
Cinderella team of the season, if we may call them that.
At no point did I ever feel Benfica was in danger. It looked like if you're telling me they're in 5th place, but if anyone watched that game, is watching that game on Saturday, watching Portuguese football for the very first time, they're saying, okay, Benfica did what they had to do, but they're playing definitely one of the worst teams in the league because based on that one performance, Casa Pia was not great at any stretch. I mean, and no part of the game. So I don't want to take credit away from what Benfica did, but again, Benfica did exactly what they wanted to do. It's against Casa Pia, and you know me, I'm a person that is not impressed very easily. So, I'm not going to sit here and do backflips. I'm pleased we did what we had to do. I'm pleased we got the 3 points. We've seen in years past that it was games like these where Benfica would have a big matchup coming up. They'd somehow find a way to trip up, and they didn't. So, I mean, they should be applauded for that, but it is what it is, man. It's a performance that we should expect of Benfica against these types of teams.
Chris, what were you more saddened by, Andrea Almeida's despedida or Casa Pia's performance?
Say that again, because I'm reading Manny Valladolid.
Better question: did you shed a tear?
What-
Did you shed a tear during Almeida's goodbye ceremony?
Did I shed a tear?
Yeah.
Oh, did some of me say, "Come on, bro, that is a little bit too much"? Because again, not saying that the guy didn't deserve it, but when you compare it to what was done for the Capitão Girafa,
Yeah.
right? That pales in comparison. So that side of me was like, wait, what caged? But at the same time, as I've said here, Dave, and you're my witness, and Alfredo and the Freddies, hopefully you guys have heard me say this before. And if you haven't, here's your opportunity to listen to it for the very first time, which is I've said it countless times that whether we like it or not, André Almeida is in a corner inside of the Museu Cosme Damião. A select few players in the history of our glorious club have accomplished what he's accomplished at the club. Whether we like it or not, swallow it, do what you got to do, sem espinha, drink a nice cold glass of water to help it go down. You just have to accept it for what it is. André Almeida has accomplished a bunch at this club, and he'll be remembered as a player that contributed to a very successful period of the club. And we just have to accept it.
And one of the select few to be Tetra?
Yeah, I think it's one of six, I believe. One of six that was
Is he the
that was
only Portuguese player to be Tetra at Benfica?
easy, Pop.
Pizzi was also Tetra?
Easy. It was Pizzi, Salvio, André Almeida,
Luizão.
Feja, Luizão, and Jardel.
Jardel, you're right. The magnificent six. But anyway, look, I know we're jumping all over the place, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention something about Almeida's farewell. I thought the club did that well, as Chris mentioned, as in comparison to Luizão. Diogo Reis is saying that Luizão didn't want it. I don't know if Luizão didn't want it or if at the time there was something going on. But I thought that Luizão could have done the same. But I think that at the time there may have been something between Luizão and the fans. As occasionally we used to have that, or every off season we used to have something with Luizão where he was going to leave and then he was going to stay, and so I thought he could have done something like this. I thought it was beautiful. I thought bringing out all the trophies that he's won was great. 12 years, 15 trophies. I mean, that's significant. Obviously, wasn't a key player during those years, but he was one of the guys. He was a utilitarian player, polyvalent, as Cristiano likes to call him. Could play right back, could play in the middle also. Not your superstar, sometimes polarizing, but I mean, when you look at the guy's curriculum, you can't get away from the fact that he's won that many trophies, and he was present at a time where Benfica was really at their height, or perhaps the highest they've been in the past 20 years.
20? You're being generous.
30?
Since 94.
Since 94. So, okay.
In the last 28 years. Yep.
Okay. Dave, what'd you think?
Listen, I'm sorry, Dave. Just to whether Luizão wanted it or not, that's fine. You respect his wishes at the time, but I think the club has had plenty of time since to do something for Luizão. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, and there was other players before, or even in and around that, like where it would be like from one day to the next, the player would rescind. I think like Julio Cesar was one of them. I know Jonas had the preseason where he played a half and then he got subbed off there too. But I would hope going forward. But we also need to hold these ceremonies for players that deserve it, right? We're not going to water it down and have one every week, but when it matters, I think the club should use this as an example going forward, because that Luizão one was during the week, and I'm pretty sure there was no fans there, or it wasn't before a game. It was just some ceremony midweek. But kudos to the club on getting this ceremony spot on.
But let's
here.
keep this in mind, Dave. Let's keep this in mind, right? When we're talking about Toto Salvio, let's just talk about the Magnificent Six, right? Salvio, Jardel, Luizão, Almeida, who else? Alfredo, Feja, and Pizzi, right? I believe with the, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe with the exception of Almeida and Luizão, everybody else left on a transfer to another team. So they're still actively playing. Luizão was retiring. That's totally different. When you're retiring, you bring out all the bells and whistles. Andre Almeida, we don't know if he's retiring. We don't know if anybody wants him. So he might as well be, we don't know. But again, he's not leaving to another club. It was like those guys had to get their things together, get their family stuff together to move on to another club, to another country, to another region, right? Totally understandable with those guys. But with Luizão, he was retiring, bro. That's when you bring out the yacht, you bring out the car, you give everybody, you give the guys the whole shebang and thank them for everything they've done. And again, I respect it. Like Alfredo said, he didn't want it, but I think the club has had plenty of time since to honor a guy that whether he'd butt heads with the front office in terms of requesting a transfer, whether that was a negotiation ploy to get himself a better deal, better contract or not. At the end of the day, he still lasted a very long time at the club. He was captain of this club through the most successful period that we've had over, nearly we'll just call it the last 30 years. I think he deserves a little something more than that. It's just my humble opinion. And again, Andre Almeida is a guy that doesn't please a lot of guys. Yes, myself included. I was very frustrated at times that this guy was our number one option at right back. But, he's that ugly duckling that as time goes along.
But is it his fault or is it the club's fault?
No, it's the club's fault. It's the club's fault. Absolutely the club. It's not his fault.
I heard somebody, and I don't know if it was Benfica Independent Rescaldo or not, in terms of excuse me, Andre Almeida epitomizes the lack of ambition by Benfica in those coming years, especially when he became the number one right back. And I'm kind of, the word escapes me now in terms of, and Cristiano, you say this all the time, that the fans have settled for mediocrity for way too long, and I think that Andre Almeida kind of epitomizes that. And I don't want to shit on a guy. Obviously, the accomplishments are accomplishments, but I think that he really became the face of that lack of ambition.
Competent by the club, by the front office.
Right. He was a part of the Mean Girls clique, was he not? With Rafa, Pizzi.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some people say that he's a great guy in the locker room. That he's great at welcoming new players and showing them the corners of the house. I mean,
great. He could take Shell's old job. But listen, I was fortunate enough, as you guys know, to have worked with Benfica and shared the back rooms of locker rooms, hotels, and stuff like that, buses with Andre Almeida and the whole club, as you know. And Andre Almeida was a pretty cool dude, funny dude. His teammates liked him. The guy's not a bad person by any stretch of your imagination. Obviously, there's been tons of reports about the little clique, as Dave mentioned, the Mean Girls, right? There's also been reports that a lot of that has been exaggerated, that it wasn't it wasn't anywhere near as close to what was reported. So look, he was a cool dude. We'll see what happens, right, with him going forward. But I think the club right now is very well served. I think he did what he had to do. And again, we can't fault a player. He's not going to turn himself in and say, "Look, Rui Vitoria, Luis Vieira, I suck. You need to get a replacement for me because I suck." It's the front office position. Exactly. He's doing his job. He's a professional. Whether he had the quality or not to be on this team is a conversation that we could sit here and discuss until the cows come home. But the directors at the time, the coaching staff, absolutely believed that he was. And it's more down to their competence, to if they were able to do the job or not. And we saw, once they saw Nelson Smith, right, really the summer that the Baraka came down was that summer. I think we talked about it last week, or I know we talked about it in the last couple of podcasts. I mentioned it was the year Ederson left, Lindelof, Smith, and Mitroglou. And that was really the year that we all sat back and said, where's the ambition? And like from the club, from the front office to the fans, it was as if everybody was just content with status quo. All right, it's okay. We'll promote the kids from Seixal, and because every single one of them is going to be Ruben Diaz and Renato Sanchez, right? That's what these people think some way, somehow. Even now, like people are talking about when Enzo left to go back and get Thiago Dantas or get Guga. And it's just like, do you guys not want to get better? Do you not have ambition to win games and to be competitive outside of Portugal? Because bringing in Andre Almeidas and these types of players, you're just telling me and telling everybody else that you're content with competing domestically. But again, I'm going off on a tangent. I don't want to go that way. But still, Andre Almeida, look, he served his purpose. And I think a lot of people couldn't stand him here towards the end. But at the end of the day, it's no fault of his own. I think the front office is a lot to blame. And we should remember the guy as a guy that was on teams that were very successful. And say what you want, like him or not, he always gave his best.
Yeah, look, yeah, let's get past that. But I needed to mention that, and I'm sorry that we kind of that I slotted that in between us talking about the Casa Pia game. But certainly as we watch this Casa Pia game and we watch Benfica's performance, and regardless of whether Casa Pia gave Benfica a fight or not, there's encouraging progress from Benfica. And not that the team was in the dumps, but after the World Cup, we saw a little bit of a decline from what we had seen pre-World Cup. So certainly seeing the team again gain confidence and be on top again, or inching close to that moment of form that we saw prior to the World Cup, it's encouraging. And as I look at this team, that's what I see. I'm not happy with Chiquinho in the middle. And I know that there's a lot of people giving plaudits to Chiquinho and praising Chiquinho for the game that he had. I still don't think that Chiquinho is the man that we need in that middle. I still think that Auschwitz is the guy that's going to end up there, hopefully with Rafa being healthy. That happened, that comes a reality. But certainly, I think that Chiquinho is good to come off the bench to play a role here and there to close up a hole in the midfield. But in terms of being the one guy in Benfica's midfield, especially when Benfica has aspirations of going further in the Champions League past Club Brugge, right? I don't think that Chiquinho's that guy. And I kind of laugh it off in terms of how much people are praising Chiquinho. And I don't really think that the guy was that exceptional. Cristiano, I know that you're a huge fan of Chiquinho.
Go to Dave. I pass.
You pass.
I didn't watch enough of the game to analyze Chiquinho's performance. I did catch the clip later on after the game of the fans chanting "Who is Enzo?" or whatever, and they were saying Chiquinho, which I thought it was I laughed at it. I think people are praising it more on the fact to just get a dig at Enzo, or at least I would hope so. And I don't think anybody within this club would say that Chiquinho is the like-for-like replacement for Enzo. He's there right now out of necessity with the injuries like you've mentioned, but with these guys coming back healthy, I don't see that being his full-time
I don't understand that whole movement of calling him Chiquenzo or quem é o Enzo, je ne sais pas, or
Alfredo, here's the thing.
What's the thing?
I think people are having fun with it.
I
right?
think,
Okay,
yeah,
I
that's
get
what
it.
it is.
I get it.
But it is. I enjoy the song. Quem é o Enzo, je ne sais pas, Chiqui. I mean, it's funny, right? I'm having a laugh at it myself. Right? I'm having a laugh at it myself. It's just crazy how a song from my boy Pereira, now everybody, Rui Costa, it's just amazing what that song's done. But to get back on the Chiquinho, I think people are just having a lot of fun with it. But here's the sad part. This is, to me, I'm a guy, I get irritated a lot and easily. And I have no problem admitting it. But the thing that's annoying me, it's just that there are actual Benfica fans out there who are believing and falling into this trap that yo, look at what we've done against Aroca. Look at what we've done against Casa Pia with Chiquinho. And look, I don't want this to be a knock on Chiquinho because credit to him, he's taking advantage of his opportunities, regardless of what the competition is. He can only play against competitions in front of you, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's looked good at times. He's done what he's had to do. He's done what any Benfica player should do against this level of competition, the Arocas of the world and the Casa Pias of the world. So I don't want to sit here and knock on a guy that's been nothing but a total professional, right? I've questioned his quality for years now. We all know this, right? But the sad part is that there are actual fans out there who are falling in this trap and that are believing that this is the answer. And it's scary, right? Because you like to think that people are smarter than that.
It's very scary.
I mean, I just hope that the club doesn't believe in that. But I believe at the end of the day.
Or we can fool one of these European sharks to come and pay Chiquinho for 100 million too. Maybe that's what we got to try to do. Yeah, look, we got Enzo's replacement here. Chiquinho, come by him, Chelsea.
But I would like to think that come Thursday against Sporting Braga in the Taça de Portugal match at the Pedreira, right? I think it's at the Pedreira, right? It's there, right?
Yep.
If, again, this is a huge if, right? If Gonçalo Ramos is back, if Rafa's back, if Gonçalo Guedes is healthy, if David Neres is healthy, if Joao Mario is healthy, if Arsenal is healthy, those are 6 players for 5 positions. That's not even including Chiquinho, which makes it 7 for 5. I like to think that if you're going to bench any one of those guys to start Chiquinho in a game like this that we absolutely have to win because of how dreadful we've been in this competition over the last 30, 40 years, right? Then I'll be worried. But I don't think that's the case. I think that he's doing his job. He's doing what the coaches are asking him to do. Credit to him. He's good at what he does. Between the Arsenals of the worlds and Joao Mario has a little bit more of those qualities that I'm about to refer, but he's able to come back, get the ball, get in between the lines, and start the process of building up play. He's probably got more of that in his feet than Arsenal does. Arsenal does a better job of applying pressure and better on the defensive side of things. And therefore, he's decided to play Arsenal a little bit more up the field because they want to trap in the fullbacks of the opposition as far into their own zone as much as possible. Maybe there's something there with that. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, with all 7 guys healthy and ready to roll, right? He's number 7 out of 7. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. Look, when he does play, he continues his good performances. But we should really, Alfredo.
Yeah.
I
mean, the thing is that the only way I can rationalize him starting is if Roger Schmidt wants to balance the midfield, right? With Auschwitz on the side, right? Because you can have Rafa, Neres, Guedes, Ramos, and Neres just going gung-ho up front and not have anybody to balance the midfield. That's the only way I can rationalize that. But, I mean, we'll see. So far, Roger Schmidt hasn't really put a foot wrong. So we'll see what happens. But just getting back to the game here real quick. And Nunu M, we'll answer that question. I'll try to answer that question towards the end of the podcast. Dave, don't let me forget to answer Nunu M. The other thing that I wanted to say to you guys real quick before we continue with this, we will be discussing Rui Costa's interview, not in depth, but we'll go through some of the things that he said. So Joao Mario in the 35th minute, Joao Mario again in the 43rd minute with assists from Neres and Grimaldo respectively. Benfica goes into the half 2-0, dominating the game, possession, pressing, as I mentioned, and pushing Casa Pia into their own half. So really everything. Second half, Benfica managed the game, more of that control of the ball. Casa Pia did make some changes, and they got a little bit more of the ball, but Benfica still dominated. Ba would get the third Benfica goal in the 71st minute, an individual run that he comes into the middle of the field and he hits it with his left foot. Ball suffers a deflection, but still goes in. Nonetheless, something encouraging for Ba, which is a bit of a polarizing figure when it comes to what he does on each side of the ball, both on the offensive side and the defensive side. Then some substitutions just to give guys some minutes. But at the end of the day, 3-0 for Benfica. It was the result that we needed. Another 3-0 after the game against the Roca. And now it's been a few games that Benfica has held clean sheets, right, Dave? You got those stats? You have stats on the game?
I got the stats. Four consecutive clean sheets here for Benfica. So got that going for us. It was our first, I know we were on the road here for 3 straight weeks, so good to be back playing at home. I think the players really fed off that energy, starting right off from the Almeida ceremony, and the players really fed off that energy at the Estadio de Luz. So good to be playing back at home. And then the only other stat here, Super Mario, I've got him. I think last week one of the Freddies said that Joao Mario was the new Manku master, and he's just putting up these goals this year. Scored another brace in consecutive matches, has now scored a goal in his last 3 matches, and is now tied for the league leader in goals with Gonzalo Ramos and Fran Navarro with 12 goals this season and 16 across all competitions for Joao Mario.
I'm going to give you this stat. This is a mind-boggling stat. You ready? Dave, I'm going to steal your moniker. Stats, all right? This is it. I'm going to clinch
Dave
it right
stats.
Here. Yeah, it's going to be Cristiano stats. Which is, bro, 10 years, 28 goals. Half a season, 16 goals.
Yeah.
That's bananas. Give that dude here. He's gonna get this right here.
The first one.
There it is. He's gonna win. Forget the Ballon d'Or. This is it right here, bro. It's been. I don't know how he's doing it, but yo, Joao Mario is balling. I know a bunch of Sportingistas who are like, yo, what the hell? We never had that guy play for. Where'd you get that guy from? It's just been spectacular. Dude's his confidence is through the roof. He's really, helped out Benfica in a lot of these games. You saw, Benfica wasn't really having much trouble with Casa Pia, but they weren't really creating crazy opportunities, and he gets to put that ball on net off of a cross back into the middle of the box from David Neres, and he's able to tuck it away, keep it low. That's difficult. It's difficult to do that. He's coming, he's going across his body, and he keeps the ball low and accurate on goal. The dude's been I've run out of superlatives to emphasize how good he's been this year. It's been impressive, bro. I never in a million years thought this was the guy that was on our squad. But hey, credit to him. Whatever water Peasy was drinking at the side of the Luz, this guy's definitely been drinking it lately. So let's keep that up. The only other question I had was for Dave. If you can, please, when you get a chance, or for the Freddies in the chat, if you have this answer at hand, I'd appreciate it. How many non-penalty goals, or how many penalty goals does he have? If you knew to, if you
I'll work on that.
I think he's got to have either 4 or 5. And I'm completely guessing that.
Champions League and Cup. I'm just talking about because he's got 16 goals on a year. He's got 12 on the league. How many in the league does he have?
Joao Mario has already scored more goals for Benfica that he has scored in his past stints at Sporting. Both at the B team and at the A team level for Sporting, Joao Mario's already scored more goals this season.
That's 28 and 10. That's less than 3 goals per season.
Right.
That's 3, and he's got 16 already in a half a season. So
71%. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just gonna say he is 30 years old, but the way he's playing, do you think there's another move for him outside of Benfica, or this is it for him?
No.
Yeah, there is Estrela da Amadora in a couple of years.
I think that Joao Mario comes across as an intelligent individual, and after I guess you could say failed stints outside of Portugal, all over both in England, in Italy, and in Russia. I don't think he's going anywhere. He's just going to collect a paycheck. He's probably one of the guys that's making decent point at Benfica.
I think I had this on me. I'll check it out right now. I think he's second. I I think he might be Benfica's highest paid player. I'll tell you in 1 second. Give me 1 second, because I'm able to get all their salaries.
But he'd be stupid. He's probably gonna write it out, and I think that he may even. He's got this affinity for Vitória Setúbal because that's where he made his senior debut. So maybe if Vitória Setúbal makes it up to the first division, maybe that's where he ends up. They're all the way in the third division, if I'm not mistaken, as a result of some financial shenanigans. They ended up in the third division. But really, he's having a career year. He's a coach's player. Go ahead, Chris.
The highest paid player at Benfica on a weekly wage of 82,200 a week, but you can't consider that. That's Julian Draxler, right? But after that, the highest paid player at Benfica is Joao Mario, $60,280 weekly. Comes out to a salary of $3,134,560 a year, and that's gross, I believe.
Yeah. Look, I think that, as I mentioned, he's a coach's player. He's a guy that's intelligent. He knows how to read the game. He understands and interprets coaches' ideas pretty well. We've seen that with him under JJ at Sporting when he had clearly the best year up until now. And now you see him with Roger Schmidt. And he's one of those guys that, he goes inside and he's able to interpret right away what the coach wants. And he's also, we've seen him from the what's it, with the Amazon series, the Prime series on Benfica, that he's a leader in the locker room.
You watched that?
I watched it, yeah.
You're cheating, bro. I never watched it.
You gave me the link. You haven't watched it?
Oh, did I?
Yeah. You sent me the link.
Hey, Chris,
and you didn't watch it.
I got that stat for
Go ahead,
you.
Dave.
So he's got 8 goals from the PK spot. So he's got half and half exactly. If he's got 16 scored, he's got 8 from the PK spot this season, and most of those came at the first half of the season.
If they count for Penaldo, why can't they count for Joao Mario, right?
Of course.
71% to 29% of possession for Benfica. Casa Pia with 7 shots on for the game, none of them on goal. So dominating performance by Benfica. And now we turn our attention to Braga. Exciting. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Chris.
Alfredo, the guys in the chat. Now you esforçaste. You put me on the, you know what I mean? Now they want the link.
You want the link?
You got to go to my OnlyFans page and make a donation.
Fucking A.
That's the chorizo link if you go on your OnlyFans.
Yeah. DM Benfica podcast, and I'll send you the link. All right?
Royalties?
No royalties.
Is that copyright infringement?
I'll send the link. No, it's not copyright infringement. You just can't tell people where you got it from. Yeah,
Let's run a public forum.
But send me. I mean, at least a month or two ago it was still up. I don't know if it's still up, but yeah. Send me a message. Send me a DM on Benfica Podcast Twitter, and I will send that to you guys. It's nice. It's nice. Anyway, our attention now turns to Braga. Portuguese Cup quarters Thursday, 8:30 at the Pedreira. Let me remind everyone that Benfica has yet to play a Portuguese Cup game at home. Right, so in the early stages, the lower teams or the lower division teams always get to play at home. Now that we have the draw, Benfica drew, and they're playing Braga away. I'll start with you, Dave. What are your expectations for this game, man? You think that Benfica is also in a different context now than they were when they last played Braga?
It's hard to say that. You could make the argument the team's playing better, getting back to their pre-World Cup form as we mentioned, but recently this Braga team has been giving us struggles. So it's gone through waves where back 10 years ago when we were under JJ, we struggled with Braga. Then after JJ, I think we went on something like 15 straight victories against Braga. And now recently here in our last 8 meetings, we've got only 2 wins and 6 losses out of our last 8 against Braga. So there's something there with Braga that they've had our number recently, but I hope that match that we had against Braga at the beginning of January, just after the World Cup, is still fresh in these players' minds. I mean, not that we're making excuses. Maybe the whole Enzo saga had something to do with how we showed up for that match, but everything's on the table here for this Tasa match. And if they really want to go and revenge their only loss of the season, it's here. They didn't have to wait that long to do it. And it really just falls on the team now to come home with the result. They're going to be going up against the old Manku master himself, Pizzi's with Braga now, so it's going to be a really interesting match. And I still don't know. I'm hoping that these last couple of weeks show the form that we're showing here is going to put us on the right side. But on the flip side, like Chris has mentioned, it's Mankush that we've been playing against. So this is going to be a real good litmus test to see if we truly are back on that pre-World Cup form.
Yeah, and Chris, Dave mentioned the Manco Master. Braga did lose Vitinha, but they added Bruma, which scored this past weekend, and Pizzi. How do you think this leaves Braga? Are they contenders for the title? Did they make themselves contenders for the title with these additions?
Well, they did lose Vitinha, a very key part of that of their offense. But with the additions of Bruma and Pizzi, you figured they'd have more. They'd be more than adequate to replace his offensive output. But as we saw this past week, the very first game that they played, they dropped points, which kind of led you to start.
What?
I mean, at
What?
least myself.
They didn't lose.
Braga,
They didn't drop points.
yes, they did. Braga lost.
To
Braga lost.
Sporting, but then they came back and beat Famalicão this past weekend.
Yeah.
Sporting was midweek last week, and then they
Yeah.
beat Famalicão on the weekend.
What the hell was I thinking about? I just tweeted, bro. I don't know.
The league schedule is all messed up because of the League Cup.
tweeted about it and had a nice reaction, but I tweeted about just when you start to think that Braga are serious contenders, they drop. I think it might have been the Porto Sporting game. Then I guess it was it then. But I remember saying that just when you thought that these guys were gonna be a team to challenge Benfica and to really sit there until the end of the season because of the lack of pressure and the lack of attention that will be put on their club, as we saw with Sporting 2 seasons ago. There's no pressure. There's not many eyes because obviously everybody's paying attention to what Benfica and Porto were doing. I realistically, honestly thought that they would be a challenger, but having dropped points, now Benfica sit, I believe, 7 points ahead of them. I do start, I started to think that maybe, just maybe, Benfica will start focusing a little bit more on our, friends from up north than they're going to be doing it from the friends from really, really up north, which is what I'm.
Different game, different context, Chris. Expect a win, or do you expect another poor performance, but a challenging performance?
Every time we play these guys nowadays, I don't expect wins. I think it's going to be a hard fought game. We've seen even in the last time, I believe when Benfica when Benfica got outplayed by them in the game that you guys referenced before, game that you and I were at No Name watching. They got handed, beat down 3-0. I believe the game before that, Dad got smashed by Sporting as well, like 4-0 or something like that.
5-0, I believe.
Something. And then the very next outing, these guys show up to play. We talk about here on the Benfica podcast over and over and over and over and over again, which is these teams in Portugal, when they play Benfica, they know it's their Super Bowl. So I totally expect a totally different team on Thursday against Benfica. Totally different performance than what we saw against Sporting. You have the Horta brothers, now the Pizzis of the world. You have so many players with links to Benfica that want to show and prove that they're worthy. You have the Madeiros of the world with the Sporting type. There's just, these guys are the next kids that are trying to make their stand. They're trying to, get their graffiti up on the block, and they're going to try to cause all sorts of problems. And unfortunately, against Benfica, they've been able to do that lately. It's against the other bullies that they really cower down. But against us, man, they come out and they pump their chest, and they're a totally different team against us than what we've seen in previous games of theirs against other opposition.
Yeah, should be an interesting game, and I think that there shouldn't be much motivating from Roger Smith's part. I think that he has to remind the players how poorly they played in that game when they were there last a month or so ago. And I think that you have to go on that. I think that at this point you also have to send a message, because if you get out of the Portuguese Cup, that's two domestic competitions that you've missed out on. Not to mention the historically our record of being in the Portuguese Cup final and winning it is not very favorable. In the last 25 years, we've won it 3 times. That is not something that, as a Benfiquista, you should be happy about. But certainly, I think that there's a message to be sent here to Braga that we are better than you. And that was only an accident. There was a day that the team was off, that the players were off. And I think that the players will be raring to go and raring to set the record straight this time around.
I hope it's just an accident, but the facts are these, Alfredo. In the last 10 games that Braga's played against Benfica, they won 6. The last 10 games that they played against Futebol do Porto, they won 5. In the last 10 games that they played against Sporting, they've won 2. So clearly, they either have Benfica's number or it's just a coincidence. But the fact is that they turn up for these games against Benfica. So it's going to be a very tough matchup once again. Benfica has to come in and show everybody that performance December 30th, right? I believe it's the 30th or 31st, whatever it was, that 3-0 shellac, and that Benfica realistically looked like they were outmatched the whole game. Benfica has to prove to the world and prove to themselves and prove to Braga that was just, it was one of those funk games, right? And it's not going to happen again. And hopefully these players do show up and they want to redeem themselves for that horrific performance that we saw that night at the Pedreira.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. There's some redemption here to be had. Not to mention, if you beat Braga, I think then you get either Casa Pia or Nacional, if I'm not mistaken, right? You get the winner of that game, Dave.
That's correct.
So that would be Nacional de Madeira. That would be the semifinal game. So if we beat Braga, we put ourselves in a very good position to make it to the Jamor, to the final, to most likely play against Porto, because their way is pretty easy. As I'm looking at it, I think they play Académico tomorrow. Jorge Costa's team. Say that again, Chris.
And then Rabo do Peixe at some point.
Rabo do Peixe. It's important. It's important that Benfica gets back to the Jamor. It's important that Benfica wins those titles, because the Portuguese Cups are the second most important trophy in Portuguese football, not the Taça da Liga for sure. But certainly I think that the team will be ready to go, and Roger Schmidt will have these boys prepared regardless of whether Chiquinho plays in the middle or not. I think that the team right now, I see the team entering a very good phase of form, and I hope that it continues, because we got Porto on the horizon not too far after now. This weekend there will be no game. Benfica has already played the game from this weekend. On Wednesday, Benfica will travel to Belgium to play Club Brugge, so we'll get a chance to talk about that on next Tuesday's podcast. In terms of, let's talk a little bit about the Rui Costa interview. Rui Costa explained the transfer market. You went into detail in terms of what happened with Enzo, and I think that if you weren't too happy with Enzo's exit and you were cursing him out, I think after Rui Costa's explanation in terms of it came down to the last hour, Chelsea had agreed to pay 100 million for Enzo, not 120, with the agreement that they would pay his salary until the end of the year, and he could stay at Benfica and finish out the season. at that time, I think that from what Rui Costa said, he offered more money, so Enzo wasn't really going to lose a cent out of the whole deal. He was still going to get paid to remain at Benfica, and Enzo's wish was that he wanted to move right away. So if you didn't hate Enzo before, you should be hating him now. You should be pissing on that guy and spitting on that guy every time you see him. But certainly, I think that Rui Costa was very forthcoming in terms of what the club's strategy was in the transfer window, what the plans were for Enzo, and he said so. As a Benfiquista, I'm sad to see Enzo go, but as a president, the moment a player manifests the wishes of not being here or not wanting to be here, he's done. And when Rui Costa came to that conclusion after he had the conversation with Enzo or his agent or whatever, he said this player can no longer play for Benfica, and hence the reason why he didn't travel up to Aroca to play. Not because he was being protected, but because at that time the player already manifested his wish of not continuing at the club. And as Rui Costa mentioned, if you don't want to be here, hey, we're not going to force you to be here. So you're not going to be part of this club, and you're not going to go back into the locker room. So, Chris, thoughts on some of the things that Rui Costa mentioned? We already mentioned here in the last week about how Benfica should have done a little bit better and gotten somebody to replace Enzo. Should have had already somebody in the spot ready to go. What are your thoughts on some of what the president's words were?
Well, first, I just want to say that you were obviously, to the youngsters listening to the podcast, that Alfredo was obviously just joking around and kidding. He obviously doesn't condone any type of violence and spitting. Alfredo was just joking. And nobody here on the podcast or Freddy's, none of us condone any of that. Alfredo's just a jokester. But to answer your question more directly, look, I don't know, Alfredo. I feel I have mixed feelings about the whole situation. I appreciate what Rui Costa did. It was a lot clearer than anything we've gotten in years past. Yeah. So it's obviously a start. So we should applaud that. But a piece of me feels that it was a little bit too much in terms of
too transparent. You think?
No.
Or too much explaining.
No. In terms of shitting on Enzo, I thought it was a little bit of, look at me, I tried everything I can, it's not me, and again, I feel
that's the truth, no?
It might be the truth. It very well might be the truth, but I feel that a president of a club such as Benfica, I think sometimes you have to be wiser in choosing your words, and I say that because we are not the sharks of European football. We don't have very deep pockets, and every little message, every little word comes out of a president of a club. This is not a coach who's fired, is gone. You could fire a coach every 6 months if you want, every other month. This is the president of a club, and I feel that a lot of times things of this nature can be used in recruiting your players. And I know some of you think I'm completely crazy, and some of you will just shrug it off. And I'm not faulting Rui Costa. I'm not saying he's unprofessional. But I wish he wouldn't have gone as far as he did. I think there's a line, right? He could have just had the same transparency. Look, we tried everything we can, but he basically dumped the whole bag on Enzo. And was it because that was realistically the only truth, or was it more so of covering my ass? So I wish he would have still.
I understand.
I wish he still would have. Look, we try to keep Enzo at all costs, but unfortunately we couldn't agree. He just really dumped everything on Enzo, and I thought that players remember such things. There's rumors now that Otamendi has decided to push his renewal until the end of the season. And again, regardless of whether you want the guy to come back or not come back, it just speaks to what I'm heading towards, was that due to maybe he was disappointed himself in the way that the president treated one of his teammates, one of his brothers, a guy that he's gone to battle with at Benfica at the World Cup. We don't know. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But at the end of the day, I do think that a president has a certain way to carry himself. And I think coming out in the public and shitting on players is probably not the road I would have liked to see my president take.
No, look, I appreciate the candor, and I certainly understand what you're saying. Right, a president needs to carry himself, as a leader of a club. There's some professionalism and some ethical things that kind of need to be he needs to have that behavior. I get that, but let's not forget that that Rui Costa is, along with being a president, he's also a fan. He's a Benfiquista. He's a hardcore Benfiquista, like many of us. And perhaps his inexperience let, as a manager or as a president, let a little bit of that fanboy come out. I think that he did very well in explaining, because there was a lot of stories that were circulating in the paper that we didn't know whether it was true or not. And I think that by Rui Costa coming out and being honest and being transparent and really laying out the facts as they happened, I think that Benfiquistas needed to know the truth. Now, I do understand what you're saying, Chris. As a president, you have to conduct yourself in a certain manner, but certainly I appreciate the candor. I appreciate the fact that he laid it out. I do understand that there's sometimes there may be repercussions of presidents shitting on players and players taking that to heart or saying, hey, I don't want that guy to shit on me. But the truth of the matter is that he did his dirty.
It's a two-way street. Does the president go out there and shit on himself when they push a player out the door because they no longer want him, because the player doesn't perform to the level that the club expects him to? I just feel that there's a two-way street here, and I think you have to be professional. You said he's a fan. I love the fact he's a fan, but at the end of the day, do you want a president who's a fan or a president who's smart with his words and a president that knows how to run an organization?
You want a combination of both.
Calm down. Calm down. Let me finish. Because you got a guy that, in terms of business-wise, he's a tremendous president, a guy from our neighbors, our crosstown rivals, but he was too big of a fan. He let his mouth get in the way, and it got him in trouble. A lot of Benfiquistas, and I've had these conversations with a ton of Benfiquistas over the years, that did not want Rui Gomes da Silva to be president exactly because of the same reason. Because he's too much of a fan, because he lets his emotions get in the way. Now we're praising a guy for letting his emotions get in the way just because you disagree with the player's choice. At the end of the day, I stated it here and I'll state it again. Before Enzo ever, forget Benfica, before he stepped foot in Portugal, he let everybody know what his intentions were. Right? Does it suck? Absolutely. But it was a tremendous, business-wise, in 4 months at the club, the guy made you over 70 million euros. And again, it's not the ending that we would have wanted, but again, let the fans have that reaction. For my president, and again, he's done a tremendous job so far. Credit to Rui Costa, I'm not criticizing his work, but I just wish he would have taken a different tone with regards to Enzo. He just dumped it all on him. And listen, man, at the end of the day, you didn't have to sell him, right? If you really felt that strong, you didn't have to sell him. And I get Enzo had words, and I got this confirmed by various people. He had words with Rui. He had words with Roger. I really think that he was trying to stir up the pot. He was very disrespectful. He wanted out. I understand that. But I just want my president to be a little bit more calculated, because believe it or not, guys, there are agents and players around the world that will go back when it's term, to make a decision. Do I go here? Do I go there? Everybody takes everything into account. And this could be one of the things that maybe backfires and doesn't get you a player you want down the road.
No, I certainly understand where you're coming from. Me on the other hand, I'm grateful.
As a fan, you love it. As fans, we love it, right? It shows that the president is with us and shows that he feels how we felt with the whole saga. But as a president, as a businessman, I see where Cristiano is coming from. You got to be more you got to be more smart with your words. Maybe hire a PR firm to let you kind of write that script. So when you're on the national television, you're more politically
Yeah,
correct about the whole
I
situation.
get that.
But behind closed doors, say whatever you need to say. Tell the player to go to
Yeah,
hell or whatever you need to
I get that.
do. But as fans, we love it. As a businessman, probably could have done it better. But hey, what we've asked for transparency, and now we get transparency, and kind of want to poo-poo on him too. So got to get a little balance of both, I guess.
Yeah. No, look, I get that. I get that he needed to set the story straight, but maybe he could have done in another way. But yet, I think that the narrative needed to be controlled, and he did well to control the narrative, albeit not in the most politically correct for some people. I thought it was just fine. I didn't think anything of it, but I do understand where Chris is coming from, and I do understand what kind of precedent it sets for future players. But maybe it's a message too. Don't use Benfica or don't mention Benfica as a trampoline the minute you land in Lisbon. Let this be a club where you want to be at.
We talked about that at length when he signed and he made those. When he signed and he was at the airport and he made those comments. You and I and Dave, we talked about that at length throughout the whole podcast, which was Benfica themselves can tell this guy in negotiate, yo, come here, bro, sign with us in a couple months, bro, in a year, you'll be gone. But they also, Benfica themselves also have to be smart and tell him, look, can't say that shit publicly. And obviously someone along the lines failed to transmit him that message. So it's not just, well, when you come here, don't say it. Bro, at the end of the day, everybody, as Dave said, a PR office, a PR firm, and maybe has to get involved because these things, words matter. Words matter here.
I get
okay?
it.
And people have to be a little bit smarter in choosing those words. Now, we appreciate Rui Costa. We love him for the transparency. As Dave said, this is exactly what we've asked for I don't know how many years now, and we're getting it. And I'm not complaining about his transparency. I love the fact that he came out, but it's just the tone in which he said it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing here that maybe I would have liked, a
little bit toned down. Yeah. Yeah, but
I get this might be a question for the end of the season when we do a recap, but we still have to think that Enzo was only supposed to be coming here in January, right? Because of the whole Copa Libertadores,
Yep.
and if Velez didn't beat him, he was only coming in January, right? So I think maybe at the end of the season we can ask the question whether we should have had it or whether we would have preferred him in the first or the second half of the season. But we have to still think like he was only supposed to be coming to us here in January, and he's already out the door by February.
Yeah, I think that's going to be definitely a topic at the end of the season in terms of what our assessment was of Enzo's contribution, and certainly the great Champions League group stage campaign that we had. I mean, he was a huge contributor. He was Benfica's best player for a while, but we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, happy with what was said and how it was explained as a fan. But I do understand what Chris is saying. Anyway, real quick, Nunu M had asked about he's going to Portugal in April, and he asked about how to get tickets for the Porto game. Those are going to be tough, man. Those are going to be tough because especially if Benfica continues with the form that they have so far, there's going to be a lot of people looking after those tickets. If you're a sus, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Chris.
I'll make it a lot easier. If you're looking for 2 tickets, DM me, bro, for that game. DM. We'll talk.
Okay.
That's it.
I'll just say it just in case people are also listening. The biggest thing I think is if you're a socio, you got a much easier time in getting the tickets because there's a lot of people that are going to be looking either to sell their red pass in Benfica's aftermarket, because Benfica does have a red pass aftermarket, meaning if you're not going to the game Benfica will sell it for you and then return some of that money for you. Or I think on Twitter there's a hashtag, or I forget what the hashtag is. Não se
New was something like that. No
no
news.
sense vazios or some shit like that, and you have a better chance of doing that. But if you know somebody with the red pass that's not going to the game, they could transfer the seats to you, provided they would want to do that. But Benfica does have that aftermarket of red passes. But considering the magnitude of the game, the context of the game, I think those are going to be hard to come by for more people that are looking for them. And you could probably get onesie twosies here and there of guys that are not going, but it's going to be difficult. But anyway,
Hit me up.
yeah.
DM me.
But that's it. But Cristiano's got connections, so you never know. Anyway, what else we got? We got anything else, Chris? Oh, just real quick. I guess, talking about not being remiss, just wanted to mention the situation in Turkey and in Syria with the earthquakes and all the devastation and the loss of life over there. Just want to give a big shout out to people out there that are struggling, and for relatives. I mean, we've heard of the history or the stories about Christian Atsu, who was a player that played in Portugal, and also a few other players. JJ has also mentioned that the devastation in Turkey has been really a lot more than what people have been able to see on TV. But certainly, our thoughts are with the folks of Turkey and Syria that have been affected by this catastrophe. What else? I don't think I have anything else, Chris.
Big shout out to the Freddies, Brian Petersman, Valadon Diogo, Reis, Red Baron, Flavio Ferreira, Nick Valadon, the Valadon brothers.
The Valadon brothers. It's like a tag team in wrestling. The Valadon brothers.
Bob the Builder. We Nelson. We really appreciate.
Yeah, of course.
Don't forget to drop a like. Okay,
like and subscribe if you have it.
Like e subscribe.
It helps the algorithm, whatever that means.
What that mean?
Yeah.
All that good.
What else we got? I was about to say something. Oh! Shout out to Hugo for hosting me and Cristiano this past Saturday to watch the Benfica game. So was happy to.
Where's he tonight? He's usually in the chat.
He's I don't know. Maybe he's still cleaning. He's what?
Hence why I didn't mention his name on the fake. That he came in, he just wants to hear his name and then he bounces.
Is that what it is?
You gave him the pleasure. I didn't.
No, I just he did a wonderful job in hosting us. Thank you very much, Hugo. I don't care what Cristiano says about you, and trust me, he says a lot of shit. But anyway, anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you all the Freddies that were in the chat. Thank you for the interesting conversation. Sorry we didn't get to answer some of your questions. We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll recap this Braga game, and we'll look ahead to the knockout stages of the Champions League for Benfica. Thank you very much. Carrega, everybody. Take it easy. Dave, always nice to see you, brother. Later.
Take care, guys.